All right. Thanks for coming back. Um, Today we're going to talk about something that isn't very fun to talk about, but seems to be affecting a lot of people, especially during times of recession or depression in the economy, and that's bankruptcy. Bankruptcy really is a last resort solution to credit problems. It's not something that you should take lightly. It's not something that for some reason nowadays people think, hey, you know what? I'll just rack up all this debt and then go bankrupt and then I'll start over. And it's not as easy as that. It really is something that should only be used by those who absolutely need to use it. Common reasons are people file for bankruptcy are job loss. They had a good paying job, and during a recession, the company has to let them go. They can't retain everybody, and they're unable to find a job that supports their spending. Um, a lot of people, speaking of spending, they get into bankruptcy problems. They have to file because of emotional spending. Uh, they go out, and some people, that's a form of therapy for them. They max out their credit cards, buying everything they can in order to feel good about themselves. A lot of people, they fail to budget or develop a good financial plan. These are real serious issues that we've discussed, and you know why you should be doing those. And then obviously, catastrophic injury or an illness. These are things that you can't prevent, right? There's a great talk given by one of the general authorities, and they talked about the fact that there are three different forms of trials. There are God-made trials, which you can't do anything about those, right? There are world-made trials, and then there's self-made trials. And so you overspending, you going through and deciding, I just want to buy all this stuff on credit, that would be a man-made trial. God-made trial is obviously when it comes to bankruptcy would be something, say you come down with an illness and you can no longer provide for your family. According to Consumers Union, 2/3 of people in bankruptcy have been unemployed for a period of time before they file bankruptcy. You can't control layoffs, but you can plan for them. We've talked about saving. We've talked about making sure you have money invested for these very emergencies. As we talked about, you need to save money every single month instead of spending every single dollar. If unemployment causes your income to fall and you're unable to pay your bills over an extended period of time, this really could lead to bankruptcy. Emotional spending, as we talked about, people get in trouble because they want to go out and just spend. I know a good example is there's an individual that I know who does not make enough money to pay their bills, and yet his family goes multiple times to Disneyland. And there's nothing wrong with Disneyland. I love it. My family, we've been, and it was very fun and exciting, and my son loved it. But if you can't afford to pay your creditors, then you shouldn't be going out on all this extravagant spending. Many people, as we talked about, when they don't plan their budget, they fail. And that's the thing. A lot of people think bankruptcy is something that, for lack of a better term, they think, well, only poor people have it, right? Well, no, bankruptcy affects everybody from multimillionaires all the way down to those who don't have a couple dollars. If you don't plan accordingly, like we've talked about, if you spend more than you earn, you're priming yourself for bankruptcy, okay? Whether it be a nation, whether it be a city, your own personal budget, you never spend more than you earn. Catastrophic illness or injury, as we've talked about, you get ill, you get sick, you have a work injury. I mean, that happens. A family member of mine was working at a local university, lifted a heavy box, and broke her back. I mean, these are things that can happen to you. A good example is a person hospitalized for a long time with a critical illness could easily owe $100,000 a month for all of those bills. Now, you and I both know that you're going to work as hard as you possibly can to make sure that you pay back your debts. But there comes a point in time where you need that fresh start. And so, advantages of bankruptcy. Let's talk about that for a second. When your debt seems hopeless, bankruptcy often does offer a solution. Now, the solution is not without a price, though. There is always a debt to pay, even when you have bankruptcy. So here are some of the advantages. Your debts are erased. Bankruptcy does offer a fresh start. It reduces and eliminates oftentimes your overwhelming bills, and the debtors can start over. Now, with good financial planning and counseling, you can avoid future problems with your debt. But once again, you have to have a sound budget. Make sure you never spend more than you earn. Okay? One of the issues with that, though, is once you file bankruptcy, it's very difficult to get new creditors. So credit cards to get a loan, to get a future mortgage, it's very difficult to be able to do that. Exempted assets are retained. So a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, it requires a debtor to give up most of their assets in order to erase their debts. Now you can keep certain things, right? And if you file with your spouse, there's a little bit more cushion there. Income that's not affected through bankruptcy would be Social Security, veterans benefits, unemployment compensation, alimony, child support, and disability payments. In a Chapter 13, however, you have to have a payment plan established, meaning you're going to pay these people back over a course of time, and you have to stick to that. A bankruptcy cost is small. Attorney's fees really don't cost that much because they already understand that you're in financial woes, and so they usually, the fees are a lot smaller. The disadvantages, like we talked about, your credit's damaged. The judgment that's put on your credit report, we talked about, it lasts there roughly about 10 years. If you get new credit, oftentimes your interest rates are a lot higher because creditors deem you a higher risk because you've already shown that you've filed a bankruptcy. These things aren't fun things to talk about, but you need to understand the consequences to your actions. Sometimes, like credit cards, you get a new credit card, your interest rate could be above 25%. Property's lost. Oftentimes, you try to retain your home, but you're going to lose possibly equity in your home and have to give up your home, your automobile, any investments and assets, are going to liquidate them to pay off your creditors. Some of your obligations will remain. So, say you're divorced, your alimony, your child support, all of these still have to be paid. Your income taxes and penalties, your student loans, and any debt that the bankruptcy court deems you have to continue to pay, including if a debtor comes in and says you give false representation. These are all things that you still have to pay. Some debts can be reassigned, meaning you could still pay them. Case in point, there are times where, say, someone co-signed, a friend or a loved one or family co-signed on a loan for you. If you bankrupt, they still have to pay the debt. And you don't want to do that to your friends and family and loved ones, because this could really hurt your relationship with them. And so although this isn't fun to talk about, bankruptcy is a very real part of life. And I highly encourage each and every one of you to live in a manner that you never, ever have to go through the trials that a bankruptcy will bring. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But, as we talked about, job loss, catastrophic event, illness, there's reasons when a bankruptcy can help you and give you a fresh start. So hopefully that clarifies a little bit for you about what bankruptcy is and the advantages and disadvantages of bankruptcy. You need to decide whether it's advantageous or not. But I challenge each and every single one of you to make sure that you're honest in your dealings with your fellow man. Make sure that if you have a debt, you pay it. Bankruptcy is not something that you should just go into and say, all right, I owe all this money, I'm going to bankrupt. It can damage you for many, many years to come. And I know that each and every single one of you, you're upstanding individuals, you're hardworking, and you're going to make sure that you'll never become a slave to that debt. You're going to pay it off, and you're going to make sure that your creditors know that. Thank you.